I came out, 5 cop cars, like SUV kind of SWAT style cop cars are like entering the parking lot, pulling up right in front of me. And overhead, I can hear the sound of a helicopter.
Hi, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Sharon. Welcome to the Beyond the Window podcast. I'm very excited about our guest today, Adam from The Stable Journey. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you.
And tell me what brings you here today.
Well, I am here to share my story, here to talk about maybe some of my work, hopefully share some insight into the journey I've been through, and maybe some people will connect with it, and I'd really love that.
That would be wonderful, because I know that not that long ago, you and I have spent several hours together walking through our programs, meeting with our clients, and being so generous with your gift of sharing your journey of mental strength and how you got here today and all the beautiful impact that you do for people in the community as well. So
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Where shall we begin?
I guess I can just begin with what I do now and what kind of led me there.
Yeah.
So I work as a mental health coach. I work specifically with clients who have Bipolar I. I have Bipolar I myself. I was, kind of discovered that, was diagnosed, however you want to put it, when I was 19. And I'm 39 now, so it's just hit the mark of over half my life that I've been living with the condition. And learned a lot along the way, both with support from therapists, psychiatrists, people in my life that were part of my support system, but also a lot of self-reflection. I'm a very analytical person, so kind of diving into what's really going on here. And after kind of growing and building those tools, I've found a place of stability for many years now. And 3 years ago, I had an opportunity to change careers a little bit, or kind of have some time to figure out what I wanted to do. I always felt, as I was building these tools and as I was having these experiences, that I wanted to give back, that I wanted to kind of help others with some of the things I had learned. So I, started this private practice to work with others, and I'd love to share some of the tools and some of the insight that I've gathered over the years.
Yeah, and it's so. The reason I find it is exciting is because I'm inspired.
Oh, thank
you. I know that it was not always easy, especially from the time of just understanding, like, what is happening to me? Why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
Why am I behaving a certain way? And these are not different from anyone's journey, but then to learn about a diagnosis,
yeah,
and then how to manage that and what does it come with, because the world does a whole lot of stigmatizing with mental health, and what we're trying to do is normalize the conversations. We all have mental health, but how healthy are we? How are we managing? How are we coping? So if you could take us through that journey.
Yeah, I'd say first and foremost, I think you hit on something that was really key in my, to use the word journey again, the key in my kind of life was the experiences that can come about due to the condition of Bipolar I can feel, and we definitely want to get into some of that, but it can feel very isolating. It can also feel kind of miraculous in a way, that you kind of reach a point of profoundness, and that can make one feel like they are unique in their experience. And in some ways it is each person does have a unique experience, those that I've talked to, those that I've worked with. But I think importantly also, I discovered along the way, both before my work, but also every day during my work, that there's a lot of overlap with this particular condition. It feels isolating, but once you start meeting people and start talking to people who also have, gone through the gauntlet, there's so much in common. And I think there's an opportunity in meeting with others to feel less alone. I would really love if there was an equivalent to AA for bipolar one specifically, because I think when you share your story, it when I've shared my stories, when I've had clients share their stories, it really lands of like, oh man, yeah, I've been there. I've been exactly there. Yeah.
And sometimes there are definitely support groups, like NAMI will have support groups,
Absolutely.
mental health support
Yeah.
groups, but
Yeah.
basically understanding this condition, this diagnosis, the symptoms,
Yeah.
and that not all the symptoms look the same for every person. There's a lot of similarities, but
Yeah.
not, bipolar, I think it gets stigmatized as this diagnostic from Western medicine, and it's high highs and low lows.
Yeah.
But there's so much more. There's so many different facets and uniquenesses to different individuals as well.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. I think each person has their own, it manifests differently, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say on the symptom front that it's when I like pass on like the symptoms, there's a lot of there's a lot of self-recognition. Or when I talk to families about, hey, here's kind of breaking down some of the things that they may be experiencing in with their loved one. I hope I said friends and family, that those close to somebody who's affected. When I break down like, here are the symptoms, there's a lot of recognition. There's a lot of like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And if it, I don't know if we want to go in depth onto each of the symptoms, but there is an acronym that's quite helpful called I dig fast, or dig fast, which I guess I'll list them off real quick, which is impulsivity, distractibility, irritation, grandiosity, flight of ideas, activity, sleep, and talkativeness. It's something that you can go look up online and kind of dig a little deeper into. But there's a lot of, oh shoot, I'm so sorry.
Phones happen.
I know. There is a lot of commonality. And I think that I do meet people where they're at. Yeah. Like each person is going to be in a different place. And especially along their journey, there are a lot of highs. There are, especially with bipolar one, and there are a lot of lows. And I think one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, what is the difference between bipolar one and bipolar two? That I think is a very important distinction. If it's all right for me to kind of go into that a little bit.
Yes.
So it's often best to start with bipolar two, because I think it's what people might understand and recognize a little bit more in kind of common like culture and media and things like that. But it's characterized by kind of a longer cycle, and a lot of time spent in depression, and what I call the elevated side, which is kind of above baseline. It only gets to a certain point. Clinically, it's called hypomania and not full mania. And the difference between hypomania and mania is that hypomania is not kind of necessarily life destructive. It can be very energized. It can be maybe losing a little bit of sleep, very, very enthusiastic and kind of feeling up. But it doesn't get to a certain point. With bipolar one can be stable for years at a time, like at baseline for years at a time. But when the elevation hits, it can go much, much higher into mania in an extreme state where, losing a job, alienating friends and family, spending spending copious amounts of money. And, so they really, though there are similar symptoms, they really express themselves differently. And, I think that it's actually kind of unfortunate that they are both labeled as bipolar, because the way that they express themselves and how they often should be treated and kind of like supported can be very different.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of labels personally. I know that's a weird thing to say because I am a therapist, but I believe that if we have a label, then we know how to manage it. if I know this is peanut butter, I know it goes with jelly versus something else. But sometimes people they feel limited with having a label. But I am curious about your story, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was in college when I first had my kind of experiences of I'd call it some profound experiences, and it kind of ramped me up. I ended up having to go to the hospital. Was kind of people realized something was off. Ended up having to go to the hospital. Had to leave college for a semester. Came back and felt lost. To your point earlier of feeling like what has happened here. Trying to dissect it, trying to understand it. And I ended up getting recommended from a friend to a therapist who, really understood me. And I was saying, hey, I've experienced some of these things. And she's like, yeah, some of those things, that's kind of how the world works. And these are kind of out there thoughts or out there ideas. And she really kind of helped support me in understanding them. And over the course of the next 10 or so years, I ended up having another 3 episodes, but, it was kind of consistently 3-year gaps. And then an episode, I would go to the hospital, and have to recover because after the spike of a significantly elevated period, there's almost all the time a deep crash, and a crash into depression that I would have to recover from. I have been to the hospital over the course of my life, probably 14 times. So
we're talking about psychiatric.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it's interesting going into a hospital when you're in an elevated state or you're in a manic state. Wonderful times, almost every single time. One time I couldn't smoke. Like sometimes some hospitals let you smoke or have nicotine options, and picked up that bad habit at a certain point. So that was a little rough one. But yeah, and about 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of things crystallized in terms of my understanding how to maintain stability. And it really all came together in a good way. And when I look back at the times of recovery, coming back from losses of jobs, having to kind of shift communities, because I kind of embarrassed myself publicly in front of a community that was very important to me, had to completely shift careers, completely shift community. Coming back from that has led to a feeling of security and resilience that I wouldn't give up. I would not, I'm really, though I don't define myself by the condition, it is an important part of who I am, and I wouldn't trade it. I really appreciate it. And it's led me to some dark places, but it's also given me some really eye-opening experiences and a view of the world that I value.
So what was that like when you're going through the cycle of you had to drop out of college,
Yeah,
change jobs, and you're in and out of institutions? When did the cycle stop? What was your aha moment?
I think because with bipolar 1, it can be very separated. Like I said, the 3, in the first few times it was separated by 3 years. Each recovery is a time to reflect, a time to stabilize, a time to grow. So I wouldn't say that it necessarily, yes, it all came together in the last 4 or 5 years. But it has also all come together in my 20s. At 22, there was a time of it all coming together. At 25 or 6, it all came together. It's just maybe a new stage of coming together as time went on.
So it's always learning about how it manifests, how it morphs, how it changes, and staying ahead of it.
Yeah, I think one of the other things is that The insidious part of it is that it can sneak up on you. It doesn't each time it's going to look a little bit different. At least that's my experience. That's for those of my clients who've had multiple episodes or experiences. It sneaks up. It can sneak up on you, which is why I teach diligence. Which is why I'd like to share some of the tools.
Please do. Because I remember last time we
yeah.
spent some time together, you talked about how, the beautiful routine that you have,
Yeah.
and then how you identify, oh, something's a little off. I need to get on top of that, which is so helpful for any viewer listening. So tell us about your tips for stability.
Yeah. So I'll start with a metaphor that actually it came to me in a group that we did here at La Ventana, and I was really glad it came because it's been helpful. Which is that living life with bipolar I is kind of metaphorically you're in Los Angeles and you need to drive to Brooklyn, or to across the country to New York. And the goal is not to stay in the same lane all the way. It's not like this rigid, like I need to grip the wheel tight, have my coffee, eyes open, and just maintain this lane. You're going to deviate a little bit. You're going to miss an exit. You're going to veer off a little bit. The goal over your lifetime, or over my lifetime, and what I try to teach is not to take that turn and go down to Dallas. You're just completely veer off course. Ins and outs are kind of possible. And so the way that I maintain stability in what I teach is kind of twofold. Most importantly, it's sleep regulation. The mind with bipolar I, the trend that I've seen, and I've confirmed this with those in the therapists, psychiatrists, etc. Is that when one loses a lot of sleep, traditionally, if you stayed up till morning, the next night you'd probably crash if you got pulled an all-nighter or something like that. With bipolar I, if you lose a lot of sleep one night, one will often become more energized the next night and need even less sleep, and then more energized the next night, need even less sleep, until you might be going 3 days without sleep. And that is correlated very strongly with the elevation increasing. So first and foremost, it's sleep regulation, and that's where medication is really helpful. There's mood stabilizers like lithium, like Depakote, like Lamictal. Those are a little bit subtler in terms of they kind of work in the background for mood stabilization. But medications like Seroquel and Zyprexa, they really kind of slow the mind down a little bit and help with sleep. And those are those are medications that are used to bring someone down if they're in a very elevated state. But it's also something that can be used at sometimes at a lower dosage to really help maintain that regulated sleep. And that's something that I take as well. So that's part. Yeah. So part of it is the regulation of sleep. The other part, which is what I really try to share and would like people to hear, is self-monitoring. It's this ability to catch early signs of elevation, and at first just recognition, which can actually have a physiological effect of calming down the mind and calming down the body a little bit. Excuse me. And then you can kind of get into this state of actually holding back. So talkativeness, for example, you might notice, oh man, I'm talking a little bit. I'm dominating the conversation a little too much. And it's kind of reflecting on that. It's like, oh, okay, I might be a little bit elevated. But then eventually it's like kind of holding back. It's like, oh, I was about to interrupt. It can get, subtler and subtler. And it's this self-reflective system that I've built over time to catch these symptoms, to kind of detect where am I at on a given day. Have I veered off the road a little bit? Do I need to get back on? Do I need to take a little extra medication? Do I need to, excuse me, have a calmer night tonight? stay in, watch a movie, don't go out to the bar or something like that, something that I might, be inclined to do with that impulsive nature or something like that.
So sleep regulation.
Yes.
And
Self-awareness. Self-awareness, self-monitoring.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other skills and tips?
Yeah.
Because there's so much that you've seen and heard you integrate into just your day to day.
Yeah.
And helping others. And
yeah, I think that I also I train people lifting weights. So I think some form of exercise is really helpful. I think that there's specific things about lifting weights that's very stabilizing. It can, you don't have to necessarily get your heart rate up too high. I personally think it's fun. There can be a sense of accomplishment because you're kind of building week over week. So I think that some form of exercise that one enjoys is really helpful. I think hobbies are really helpful. You
have a great hobby.
Yeah,
I've got to talk about your hobby.
Yeah, I personally love picking up hobbies. I think that's always been part of my nature. So in the last year, started creating music and then DJing that music, and then also I picked up, I don't think we've talked about this, I picked up digital drawing.
Oh, wow.
So I've, I think an interesting tip is that, or a tip that I'd share is that online classes are very affordable. You can connect with somebody and do like a video online class for a hobby that you want to pick up. And you can, $20-$40 an hour, $20-$30-$40 an hour to spend time learning a language. Also started taking French lessons.
Nice.
And so, I think hobbies, exercise. I think there's more. I'll come to it.
But that's a really great recipe for life. I also believe in regulating your sleep, having really good self-care, hobbies, routine, self-awareness. These are just an excellent recipe for successful living. And, learning a new language. We all know as we get older, we got to exercise that muscle of the brain.
Yeah.
And so learning new hobbies, expanding the neural pathways, and just keeping a zest in life. That doesn't have to be flying to Vegas and going on a shopping spree. So, which usually doesn't end up well for anybody. But just, I love I just like what you're saying. And I've heard your music. We're going to definitely play some in the background of the podcast.
Sounds good.
For listeners.
Good. I think what occurs to me is growth mindset.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
I think that hobbies help with that. It teaches. I think that different hobbies can blend into each other. If it's a physical hobby, it's like, you pick up darts and that can help with pool, can help with bowling, can help with golf. Just kind of practicing one skill can help the other. Same with, I think, artistic skills or creative skills. Just spending time with one creative skill can give you both confidence and also lessons that you can take on to others. And I think growth mindset is also important for stability. And
now I kind of want to shift to your life experience. How do you inspire and help others? How do you engage with someone who's struggling or a new family that just doesn't understand, what happened to their loved one and why is their loved one different?
Yeah. Well, I think that those are two very the approach that I'll have with a client or somebody just I meet, just that I meet that's been through some experiences that I want to help, is different than how I would help a family. So I can do sort of one first.
Someone is struggling with living with bipolar. They're newly diagnosed. Feels like a life sentence. Is just so overwhelming. Adam, calling you for help. How can you help me?
So I start with stories. I start with stories of kind of extreme situations that I've been in, and like what? So okay,
like what?
Yeah. So let's rattle a few off. So.
Because that's also the relatability.
Yeah.
Because when people are calling you, they're like, "You're not going to believe what I've been through."
Exactly. And I'll get into the story in just a second, but
Yeah.
it's the most important part is that I have humor about it. I can look back and see, you know what, this is actually pretty. It was a silly thing, or there are funny moments in it, and I think sharing that experience and showing that it can be humorous is like
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the
Not
sauces.
minimizing, but also it doesn't have to be like I use humor as a defense mechanism, I think.
Yeah,
But also as like it doesn't have to be traumatic. It
yeah,
could be post-traumatic growth.
yeah. So a story that I often start with is I was in San Francisco where I was living. I ended up being homeless, unhoused for about 7 months, and but I did have access to my car at the time, and I could get some money out of the bank from time to time. There's kind of situation there that made it difficult sometimes, but there was a casino down south of San Francisco called Lucky's, and I would go there sometimes. Also, close to there was it's like a big five sporting goods, and they sold airsoft and BB guns and things like that, which I was also kind of had a kick for. So I had a couple of airsoft in my trunk, and I also had a BB pistol that looked very real. And I was in front of the casino, and I'd parked, open up the trunk. I'm just kind of, I'm in an elevated state. I'm not thinking, maybe a little bit impulsive, a little bit just kind of not thinking clearly. Pulled out the pistol, just kind of looking at it, put it in the trunk, walked into the casino. I think I just used the bathroom. I came out, five cop cars, like SUV kind of SWAT style cop cars are like entering the parking lot, pulling up right in front of me, and overhead I can hear the sound of a helicopter. And just like probably about like it sounded like it was about 80, like 60, 80 feet up, so like low hanging helicopter. Can hear the and told to, like, I'm pretty sure they told me to put my hands up or something like that. And I was able to like snap out of whatever state I was in pretty easily. I was like, oh, I realized kind of what had happened. I had pulled out a what looked very much like a gun, like a real gun. And it's a casino. There are cameras everywhere. Somebody saw it. They called it in. I was handcuffed, brought into the police car, and I said, look, I know what happened. I was kind of, lucid at the time, and I said, there's a BB gun in my trunk. I realized I was playing with it. It's not real. Cop goes over, he says, okay, where are your keys? In my pocket. Can I grab your keys? Yep. Like, go for it. Goes to the trunk, does a little examination, comes back, and he is laughing his tail off. And he said, in the last year, I've never, like, this is the funniest thing that I've seen in like the last year, like, being called in for a pretty extreme situation, and it's just a guy with a BB gun. But so there's a lot of stuff like that. One other is that I picked up middle of the night, picked up a guy who was probably homeless. He was outside a 7-Eleven. He wanted to go to the hospital, the emergency room. So I said, sure, I can drive you, no problem. And on the way there, there's a donut store in San Francisco that I really liked. So I stopped. I said, hey, just chill here. I'm gonna go grab some donuts. Walk outside. Car is gone. I had left my key in the car. Probably also an impulsive thing, because I often, when I'm with a friend or something like that, I'll leave the key in the car in case they have to move the car or just in case something happens. But, I don't know. This guy was not thinking clearly. Car is gone. Get a letter later on in the mail that, I owe $6,000 in public damage because the guy apparently crashed the car and did some kind of public damage to it. So there's a lot of there's a lot of loss like that in my life. A lot of like, lost a car, losing jobs, losing friends. And that's tough at the time, certainly. But as kind of I was referring, as I was kind of talking about, builds resilience to loss, to which, everybody has to experience some loss in life, I would imagine.
So you have these relatable stories, and someone calls and says, okay, you might believe what I've been through because you just shared some of yours.
Yeah.
Where do we begin? I don't want help. Like,
Mm,
don't put me in an institution.
yeah.
This don't work for me. My family doesn't like me right now.
I have been fortunate to work with clients for the most part who want help. It's one of the, I give, a free hour-long consultation. I really try to, I might give some advice. I might share some stories. Hopefully I can hear a little bit about them. But if it's a family member who is, or like a loved one who is trying to refer to me, um, if the person isn't ready, because I'm a coach, I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
Don't have, I'm a peer support specialist. I have, that accreditation. But first and foremost, I'm a coach. And to be a successful coach, I think one needs buy-in from the client. So I try to really make sure that, um, they don't necessarily have to accept a diagnosis. They don't necessarily have to think, something's wrong with me, which I hope they don't. But it's common that a client will come in and feel that way. But yeah, I think I lead a little bit by example. I tell my own story. I talk about my own stability. I share kind of war stories. That's kind of, feel like, oh, I was in the trenches too,
Yeah.
back in Nam. But
That's what it feels like sometimes, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really does. And I show some levity in it. And then different clients are in different kind of places. Some of them are more ready for the hardcore tools, and they're like like raring to go. Um, some are dealing with shame. There's a lot of shame that comes with the experiences of severe elevation, especially if it goes into high levels of mania, psychosis. It's which I think it's a very loaded term, psychosis, and I think I also work with them on kind language. That's by the way, that's with family. That's the number one thing
Yeah.
that I work with.
Let's go there.
Is
Talk to me about kind language.
Yeah. Um. So I think the most obvious example that is outside of just bipolar one is mental illness. Um, Interesting thing that I kind of discovered was that if you go to illness on Wikipedia, there is no page for illness. It directly takes you to disease. Yeah, which connotations of disease are probably something that's attacking your body, something that is, something, it's a malady. It's something that is should not be in your system. And, it might be a life condition. It might be a life illness, but it's, it's like a severe dysregulation. I choose to use the term mental health condition, at any time that I can. I don't try to put upon people, especially clients, to say you should use these words, but especially with friends and family, I say, like, here's some alternatives that you can use. That's really, I believe, sends the same message. I think it has weight to it in the same way, but things like my partner or child is sick, they're unwell, they're crazy, they're out of their mind. I try to like readjust the language, um, and often, I don't necessarily sit them down and say, you need to do this. At first, I just, they might say, my son is ill, and I say, well, I have the condition as well. Sort of just, planting seeds. Uh, at times I will be a little more direct, but that's one of the first things. And I think one of the other things that helps with family, uh, and I think one of the other things that helps with family is just them knowing that I have the condition as well, and seeing somebody that is stable and working with it, but still living with it,
Right.
and understanding. I share with them, and I think that it's helpful to have an understanding. It's a lifelong condition. It can be what's called in remission, similar to kind of along the lines of cancer, but it's you can go many many years and hopefully one's whole life without having another episode. But it is a it is something that is kind of carried with and really needs to be given attention to kind of maintain that stability over the course of time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you talk about kind language, because that is all about destigmatizing and deshaming.
Yeah.
And really being careful with our words, because words are very powerful. I mean, the words that we say to ourselves and say to each other
Yeah.
have a lot of power. So we have to, if I'm using stigmatizing language, crazy, illness, sick, unwell,
Yeah.
then I'm going to see myself in a different lens.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to treat myself in a different way.
Yeah.
But if I can look at someone, they're struggling with a condition that can be managed,
Mhm.
and there is hope. And I think that's the greatest thing, is when you introduce yourself and say, I have this condition.
Mhm.
You're basically saying there's hope. If I can do it,
Yeah.
it can be done. And there's not enough people in the world, I think, that share, like using their celebrity to disclose, I have this too.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Mm.
And there is hope, and there is help.
I think that you brought up a good point in terms of stigmatization, that kind language is kind language is not just for external to internal. It's not just like how those around treat the individual. It's how the individual sees themselves. If if I think of myself as being sick, sorry. If I think of myself as being sick, I it'll cut. It's like it's like putting on like a glasses,
Yep.
a certain shade of
Yep.
glasses, maybe like a
It's
blue
the
or a
lens we see
greenish.
ourselves
Yeah, it's a
through.
lens we
That
see ourselves through.
filter.
It's a filter, exactly. And you can choose to put on a different filter by using different language.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Words are powerful.
so I think that one of the things that I try to say, and I don't speak about this as often, but I do it through kind of planting seeds and through example, is bipolar I, bipolar II, as opposed to bipolar disorder, bipolar I disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I've talked with some therapists and psychiatrists that feel that the disorder term, it can be helpful for kind of assessing, and in the DSM-5, there is a lot of usages of the term disorder. And I think that it's not wrong, but it's a very stigmatizing word.
Yeah.
And I think that I mean, if I say I have bipolar I, you're not getting a completely different set of information than if I say I have bipolar I disorder. It's kind of tacked on at the end, and um, it's not necessarily helpful, I think. I think, keeping it in the DSM is fine, but that's, your one's family is not going to go and read the DSM to understand the condition. They're going to be working with a support team, and so, yeah, that's one of the other things I use, is just saying bipolar I or bipolar II, as opposed to disorder.
Yeah. Yeah. Language is super important. And I think the DSM and, the diagnostic manual is great for labels and insurance. And if we know what it is, we know, potentially a recipe and algorithm to
Yeah,
treat.
yeah, yeah.
But we don't really, I'm not a big fan of labels
Yeah.
because, you know, we don't fall into boxes. We don't fall into labels.
Yeah.
Um,
And
we're people.
I think, I think the being defined by one's condition is also got to be one has to be a little careful, both from the outside in,
Right.
like if I define somebody else or I
Right.
define myself, that can snowball a little bit. I personally, I do define it a little bit because I'm proud of it, you know, in the same way that I define myself as an aspiring DJ. Yeah, it, the language is important for
Mm.
sure.
And I'm going to reframe your language because you're not an
Sure.
aspiring DJ. You are a DJ. I have heard your music. I know of your work.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I guess once you do it publicly,
it's real.
I guess it's real. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, what are some key takeaways for our viewers and listeners?
yeah. I think one of the things that I would say is that there are additional tools available outside of medication. There's different things. I think that often people will think, oh, you know, I guess asked the question all the time, or I did over the course of my experience, are you taking your medication?
Yeah.
You know, are you on medication? Are you taking medication? And I was like throughout, but it's all I always react. It's like, but that's not
That's
everything.
not, yeah.
It's like it is super helpful.
Yeah.
It has been for me, and I, you know, I support the idea of using medication to help with this condition, and for other conditions as well. But there's more available. There's more available to
Right.
help oneself
Right.
with stability, with maintaining one's life, and with success to, you know, to lead to a healthy and happy and fulfilled life. There's more tools out there,
Yeah.
and um, you know, I would love to share like every single little bit in detail, but as I told you, I am kind of I'm putting that out on I'm working on a YouTube series
Very cool.
to put all of these lessons out.
Well, you shared some really key important lessons, which are the hobbies, the exercise,
Yeah.
the sleep regulation, the self awareness.
Yeah.
Those are all really phenomenal. The hobbies. So I think I said that.
There's one that I forgot to mention, which is with the self reflection. There is it is very helpful to be able to check in with yourself on a daily basis and say, where am I on this scale of elevation? And there's a book called the Bipolar Survival Guide, and in that is a little kind of tool set of measuring yourself on a 0 to 3 scale, 0 being baseline. And it also goes into the negative, but I mostly work with the elevation side of things. So 0 to 3, 3 being, you know, full mania, you know, very, very high level of elevation, you know, may need to be hospitalized or kind of be brought down in some way. 2 is kind of hypomania, and then everything below that is kind of like it's elevated. And as one uses this scale, you can get more and more precise down to like, oh, you know, I'm feeling at a 0.5 today. I'm feeling at a 0.25. And I think that helps to not be afraid of elevation and afraid of mania, which is, I think, another point that I would like to give to others with bipolar 1 is there is a draw to it because it's very exciting, but also there can be a lot of fear around it, starting to feel like, oh God,
Yeah.
I'm getting into this state and remembering all the trauma that one might have gone through with the loss that might have
Right.
happened. So I try really to teach with my clients the acceptance of, you know, I'm feeling a little elevated today, and I use that word really intentionally as well, because manic and hypomanic, those are defined terms. Those are like definitions along the scale.
Right.
There's a lot of in between. It's not just, you don't just jump from baseline, which is called euthymia is the term for it, but you don't just jump from baseline to hypomania. It can happen over the course of a day or two, but along that day or two, you'll pass through all of these stages. It can happen over a week, it can happen over a month, but checking in, not having fear around it, is important.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then where do people find you?
So you can find me at The Stable Journey. You can Google The Stable Journey. It's the first thing that comes up. I have my story on there. It's a picture of me, and you can contact me. Phone number's on there, and you can also, form to fill out.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We'll definitely make that accessible to our viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I know I'm definitely going to have you back because this is not our first time.
Yeah.
And we're on a journey here. So
Yes,
thank
absolutely.
you for inspiring us with your story, with your resilience, just being so beautifully vulnerable about and normalizing the conversation about mental health.
Yeah, it was really a pleasure. It's always great to see you. And excited to come back if you'll have me.
Of course. Thank you for tuning in on Beyond the Window podcast. You can catch us on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and laventanatreatment.com. Looking forward to having you listen and view the next episode.